Time now for the Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, presented by 89-1 The Bash and the Gibson Southern Titan Football Boosters, including A&D Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Fryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, Key Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Vernado Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department and 89.1 The Bash.
We're here, Nick Hart Show. I'm Austin Harrelson. Hopefully we can have plenty of episodes here this season. I'm here with longtime Gibson Southern head coach, Nick Hart. Nick, how's it going?
Good. Exciting time of the year. Kind of get fall camp, behind you and move into game week. And, obviously everybody around the state's always excited week one. And, we got a big test in front of us, which I think, makes it even more exciting.
Yeah, so you know what? We're just going to jump right into, you were talking about the off season. So you're coming off, honestly, compared to other seasons in the past 5 or so years, a down year, losing, in the first round of the sectionals. What kind of changed this off season? Did anything change in your approach? And is it the same kind of expectation heading into this season as it has been in past years?
Yeah, the expectation's always the same. And obviously we never want to lose in the first round of the tournament. I think just the way our tournament's set up, it's going to happen sometimes. You run into the state champs in round one. I think you kind of look at last year because you brought it up. You lost to a 5A Kentucky team in South Warren who made a nice run down there in 5A in their tournament, and then Heritage Hills twice, who was the Indiana 3A state champs. So maybe the record's a little misleading, about the year. But that being said, our goal is always to win the sectional, and put ourselves in position to make a run. And so, yeah, I think we had a long off season because of that, and it's just kind of. I think leadership was a big thing we were looking for in this off season, and our senior group, I think, responded to that really well. They really set the tone, for the off season into the summer, and into fall camp. And I think most coaches are probably happy with where they're at right now because nobody's lost. But I'm really pleased with where we're at. From that standpoint, we had a great year in the weight room and speed development. And then I thought as we went through the summer, and fall camp, was really pleased with what I saw. Definitely excited about this group. We have a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. So kind of leaning heavy on them and their experience to be great leaders for our football team.
Yeah, that was what I was kind of going to get to next is, you're obviously every single year in high school football, you're losing seniors. You're losing big classes, especially for you guys at Gibson Southern, when we talk about how tremendous of a football program this is. What have the younger classmen as well as the juniors heading into their senior year, what have they learned the most, especially, after losing to the state champs in the first round of the playoffs? What is something that they learned that you think that maybe they didn't know before?
Yeah, I think it's just our current seniors, I guess they were juniors in the off season, but kind of in the football world, when you get beat, they turn and become seniors, the next day. They've done such a great job of setting the tone of, what they do in the weight room, what they do, in speed development, what they do on the practice field. I think our young guys, just kind of fall in line. And I really think in high school football, we've had some tremendous leaders over the years, and it's still really hard for them to lead as juniors. Your team's really going to go how your seniors go. And our seniors have, really kind of been on a mission and done a great job of setting the tone of this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and everybody else, has matched that.
When we're talking about the coaching staff, obviously, like the high school I went to was a 2A high school. They had maybe three coaches on the coaching staff. You go to one of your games and you've got a plethora of coaches. Kind of talk about your coaching staff, see like if there's any changes to the staff or if it's the same group that you've been rocking with.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same group. I think we're really fortunate with the staff that we have and how we're able to kind of divide things up. And I think that really lets guys, focus on details of certain things because, we got somebody else watching the other part. Coach Snow has been here with us, since I got here. Him and his wife took a job in the Indy area, and no longer with us. And so we'll certainly miss him. He's been, one of our go-to guys, over the course of my time here. And Devin Murphy was with us, for a couple of years. He took a job back home, and went. But we've brought on Luke Simmons, who has a lot of experience. He played college football, and has been coaching at Mount Carmel for a long time. He got a teaching job in our school district, so he's working with us. And Sean DeLong, who played here just a couple of years ago, is back helping us coach. So for the most part, everybody stays the same, but we lost two really good guys, and we think we got two really good ones, to come in and help, ease that loss of the guys that we did lose. So I think our staff does a great job. They work really, really hard at it, and do a great job. They're great men is the most important thing that are around our guys. But they love football, and we work really well together. A lot of us have been together for a long time, and we have a lot of fun doing this together as a staff.
I'm just excited. I didn't know Sean DeLong was going to be on the staff, but we also have Scotty up in the booth. So I think having that kind of connection actually on the broadcast wise is going to be awesome. But also, I remember Sean playing, and he's not the biggest guy out there, but obviously, pretty good at everything that he did on the field. So we'll take a real quick break here, and then we'll be back here on 89 The Bash with Nick Hart.
This special sports presentation of 89 The Bash is made possible by A&D Logistics LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Kleiman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, and by Hillside Gardens.
And we're back here on 89 The Bash with Nick Hart as a part of the Nick Hart Show. So, Coach Hart, when we talk about the offense, the past 2 years when I was calling games, the offense was absolutely electric. The run game was really where this team's magic was. And, talk about what this team is looking like into this year, if it's more of a balanced team, or if you're going to lean on that run game, or if you're going to lean on senior quarterback Zach Foster.
Yeah, a combination. I think, our offensive approach, we want to be balanced in having the ability to do both. But, we're going to attack the defense with what they're giving us. So, if they want to play run heavy, there might be games that we throw it more than we run it, and vice versa. If the box is light, then it might be more of a running game. So, we have 93 starts combined back on our offensive line, from a bunch of 3-year starters and a 4-year starter, and that's pretty rare. To have that experience up front. I think they've done a great job this summer. And that's where it starts. You got to be able to run the football. You got to be able to protect the passer, whichever way you want to go with it. It starts with those guys up front. And so they've done a really good job this summer. I think Zach is poised to have a really good year. He's going to be a 4-year starter. But kind of the downfall to that last year was he hadn't really played quarterback other than getting some reps in practice and a little bit at the end of games since 8th grade. So he was, we were kind of relearning everything as we went through last year. And I think just having all those games under his belt, you can tell a real difference with his decision making and how quickly he's making decisions on where to go with the football. And stuff like that. I think we're going to kind of have a backfield by committee, and feel really good about all those guys that are going to get some touches back there. And I think our receiving core is probably one of the more explosive groups we've had in the past couple of years. I think they really have the ability to stretch the field, do some catch and run stuff with the ball. And I think when we kind of went back and looked at last year, and for multiple reasons, you kind of talked about us being explosive back when you were calling the games. We were really kind of missing. Our explosive plays were really down, compared to years past. So, it's something that we want to get back up. I think it's really hard in high school football to just kind of, go 80 yards methodically at a time. We don't need an 80-yard touchdown, but some of those chunks to cut out some of the first downs that you need, really help you. And, there's studies all over the place in college football and NFL of your chance of scoring when you have, explosive plays in the drive. So I think those receivers give us the opportunity to kind of get back, some of that explosion that we're used to having.
So, you talk about having, obviously, you guys lost three receivers to graduation, and you're talking about a running back by committee. Kind of dive into the players themselves, kind of highlight who you think at the skill position player wise, who you think can step up and, kind of carry the workload that these past seniors had.
Yeah, running back is primarily going to be Eli Foster. He's a junior. He got some spot time for us last year and did a great job as a sophomore. Tucker Deputy's a sophomore. And both those guys, I think, have really run the ball well this summer. Really excited about where they're at. There might be a couple other guys that get some a little bit of time back there. Then at receiver, Lloyd Sellers started in the slot for us last year. He's going to be playing some defense, so him and Jake Major are going to platoon one of those slot positions. Toby Pullen played a lot for us last year as a slot and an H-back. He's back. And then our outside guys, I think that's really been I don't know if surprise of the summer is the best word, but pleasant surprise. I think surprise kind of infers that I didn't think they were going to be good. We thought they were going to be good, but surprised about how well, though pleasantly surprised about how well those guys are playing. And that's Peyton Johnson, a junior, who had a really good JV year for us last year. And then Noah Keister is back out for football. He plays a freshman and sophomore. We didn't have him last year, but he came back out this year. And both those guys are playing really, really well on the outside. So, really excited about that receiving group and the potential they have, to have a great year.
Back then, that's what was so exciting about this Gibson Southern team is having a workhorse like Devin Roberts. And, going from that to what you did in 2024 with a more running back by committee, I think is really important to highlight and see the development of these Gibson Southern players and as well as the offense switching up, not necessarily switching up, but kind of adapting to the players that you have at the time. And I think I'm expecting a really good season. Obviously, you are as well. But we'll cut this segment. We'll be right back with Nick Hart here on 89.1 The Bash.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Union State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, and by Parker Excavating.
And we're back here on 89.1 The Bash with Nick Hart. Nick, we just got done talking about the offense and where you expect this offense to be. Now we'll flip to the other side. What I remember most is how dominant of a defense that this could be when all of the cylinders are clicking at the same time. And it was a pleasure to see. But talk about kind of the impact that you're missing. Obviously, Bo Rose is out. That's been one of your primary pieces on the defensive side the past few seasons. Talk about who can step up in that role, and not even just Rose, but the rest of the seniors that you're losing on the defensive side.
Yeah, I think it starts for us this year. It kind of sounds a little bit like the offense. On the defensive line, we have five guys back that started significant amount of time last year, for our four down lineman stuff. Maverick Deputy, Cale Campbell, Brody Clem, who's a three-time All-Stater, and Noah Ott all started the year last year. Unfortunately, Mav got hurt week 4. And then Ben Reinhardt came in and started the rest of the year, and none of those guys graduated. So, we've had our whole D line back before, but I've never had like, 5 for 4, or when we were a 3-man front, have 4 for 3. So it's a little bit of a unique, position to be in. And kind of, we think all those guys can play really well. So trying to, put the pieces of the puzzle together of, this guy rotating and making sure all those guys are playing, but, this guy gives us the best, shot in this situation, and this guy gives us the best shot in that situation, and kind of putting the pieces of that puzzle together. But, again, a lot of guys, returning up there that have played a lot of football. Brody's a 4-year starter. Like I said, 3-time All-Stater. And I think it really starts with him. I think everybody sees the plays he does make, but there's so many plays that he makes that, his name probably doesn't get announced on the PA system, or it show up in the box score of, how he affected the protection and somebody else got a sack, or how he caused penetration and wasn't able to make the play, but the penetration made the ball bounce and bubble, and somebody else came and cleaned it up. He does a wonderful job of impacting the game, and has, ever since he was a freshman. That's why he's a 3-time All-Stater. But, that whole group, maybe not the biggest D-line group we've ever had, but they're really strong, really physical. They're very quick. And that allows us to kind of be creative with some of the stuff that we're able to do, and especially, with all those guys back, and the experience, and what we've kind of been able to install as we went through the summer and stuff. We're probably ahead in that regard as far as like fronts and movements and stuff like that. And then, you kind of move back to the next level. You mentioned Bo, who's a fantastic player for us. He got hurt week 4 last year as well. So, really ever since that part, Colin Shear, who's going to be a 3-year starter, he moved from Sam to Mike, and finished the year at Mike for us last year. And Gunnar Alexander at that point starting at Will. He's going to be a 3-year starter between his time on offense and defense. And then Ian Mykrantz is going to be the Sam for us. So, 2 returning starters in the linebacker core, 5 up front. So, even though we're not going to start all 5 D linemen, 6 of those 7 guys in the front 7, are returning starters. And, I think that's really pivotal, especially early in the year, is everybody's trying to, kind of get used to Friday nights and the preparation that goes into the week and stuff. We have a lot of guys that have kind of been through that battle before.
So, when I think of any sports team, really, when it goes from baseball to basketball to football, I think that you see that the best teams out there have the depth. And in high school football, the depth really comes with sometimes underclassmen and, juniors ready to make a spark. What would you say about this team in general, not even just the defense, but the depth from top to bottom, and how that can help you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And especially with the way we like to play, for a 3A school, to try and we're not going to be 2 platoon this year, because like I said, Jake and Lloyd are going to play at corner and also come over and play. They're going to platoon a spot, at receiver. So they're going to kind of start 1.5 ways, if you will, instead of both ways. But, with the tempo and the way we like to play on offense, it's important to be as deep as we can be. And, I think one of the reasons we like to, play our 22, instead of playing a lot of guys both ways too, is, injuries. Nobody wants them to happen, but they're inevitable. And you play enough football, it's going to happen. When guys play both ways, you lose 2 starters when one guy goes down. So, obviously, there's pros and cons to the way we do it and the way that others do it, but it's what we believe in, and we have to have depth, to do that. And I think this is probably the deepest we've been, in quite some time. We're talking about the starters here, but we really think at each position, we've got some depth, to get through the bumps and bruises that go through a football season. Hopefully, The injury bug bit us pretty good last year with some season enders, so hopefully we've got that out of the way moving into this year. But you're going to have the inevitable bumps and bruises that go through where this guy has to miss a game and he'll be back in a week or two. We feel really good about our depth and where it's at, especially here early in the year when it's hot and you're playing fast. Um, that depth is really, really important.
So the last thing I want to hit with talking about the depth chart is he was my favorite player to watch, and it was Cam Novotny. Only because like you do not see kickers in high school perform like Cam Novotny did. You just don't see that, especially I'm from Southern Illinois. So like it was unheard of what he was doing here at Gibson Southern. He's graduating. What does the kicking situation look like? What is the special team situation as a whole? What does that look like? Because I think that's one of the most important aspects of the game. If you're not good at that, then your team doesn't succeed.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think sometimes us as coaches we kind of say like it's the third phase of the game, and then we don't give it the appropriate amount of time the way we do offense and defense. Um, but yeah, we petitioned the IHSAA to try and get Cam a fifth year and get him back here, at least for the fall, and they, that's not allowed. So, but we have Will Redden. Is a soccer player that's going to kick for us this year. I'm really excited with what he's done so far in practice. He's really kicked the ball well for a first year football player, and I think he's working really hard at it. So I think it's something he's going to improve on and get more consistent with as we go through the season, since this is new to him. Um, he'll handle the place kicking and kickoff duties. And then Caden Roshlow, who's our backup quarterback, is the punter. Um, and again, Caden's worked really hard at that through fall camp. And he's got a nice leg, and I think as he's working on it, he's getting more and more consistent. To hit it well each time. We've got a couple of long snappers back, so we feel good about that. And Zach's been our holder for a couple of years and has done a great job. Um, and then we got some guys in the return game with Colin Shear and Jake Major and Lloyd Sellers, that we feel really good about getting into space. And again, I think that's one of the nice things. We put a lot of value into our special teams, and especially with us not starting a lot of guys both ways. I felt like, when I've been a part of teams that have done that, you feel like you try and get them. Okay, like he's carrying the ball and playing linebacker for us every place. Like, let's try and get him off the kickoff team or the kickoff return team. We really try and put as many starters as we can on our special teams because we're not asking them to, turn around and play defense again after they just came off the field on offense. So, we really try and load up our special teams and put the best guys we can out there and give them the appropriate amount of time to be as successful as we can, in those phases. And, looking at the Danville game, I mean, one of the things that won us the game last year is, we blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown, that kind of got us back in that ball game because we were really struggling offensively. So, special teams are huge. And I think especially in the beginning part of the year, right? Because, we work it, we drill it, we do all these things. I think it's a lot harder to go live, in special teams, than it is offense and defense. So I think that, these first couple of weeks here is probably when you see the most amount of mistakes in special teams that can cost you a game. When we go scrimmage people in the summer, nobody's ever like, hey, you want to work on punt team? You're just kind of doing your offense and defense stuff. So this is really the first time, you're getting to go true live, and some of your stuff, outside of practice. So, that's a big thing. I think week 1, 2, maybe even 3 is kind of minimizing the mistakes in the kicking game. You're going to make some mistakes, but minimizing them, to not put yourself in a bad situation.
Well, After this segment, we'll get into the last one. You brought up Danville in there, and obviously, the most anticipated part of a high school football season is the first game. So when we come back, we will talk about the season opener against Danville here on 89.1 The Bash.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Granado Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body.
And we're back here on 89.1 The Bash with head coach of the Gibson Southern Titans, Nick Hart. We're talking about the most anticipated part of the season, and that is the season opener. And, you know, when you look at your guys' schedule from the past few seasons, it's not, by no means is it considered a cupcake schedule. You know, you see a lot of teams try and go for easier starts to this season. However, you know, you'll go against 4A, even 6A teams at times, you know, through the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. But you're starting off against Danville. You started off against Danville last season, and it ended up being a really close game, but you came out with the victory. Coming back against Danville, kind of talk about your approach after facing them last year to start the season, if anything's changed, or, you know, what you saw specifically in last year's season opener that you want to implement in this year's.
Yeah, I think it was, I gotten to know Coach Comer pretty well at Danville, and I think we would both say, there was a lot of mistakes made on both sides in that game last year. It was not the most beautiful game in the world to watch. And so I think, whoever lost that game would be kind of thinking like, how in the world did we lose that game? And whoever won it would probably say, I'm not really sure how we won that game. I expect both of us. I think we were both a little young last year. I think they're so well coached in everything they do. They're going to execute at a higher level this year. They had some turnovers and stuff that kind of kept us in the game when we weren't playing well, and a lot of that had to do with them. But I think the defense has really dominated the game last year. Both offense, they moved the ball early on offense. And we kind of got it going late. But in the middle of the second and third quarter, both teams were really kind of struggling to move the football. And it was not beautiful by any stretch of the imagination. So, they're really well coached. And I think one of the unique things about them, it's really like preparing for two offenses. They're good at both of them. They'll run the flex bone. And kind of run some power football and that the flex bone type of stuff at you. But they also have the ability to get in the gun and spread you out and go. It's a unique challenge, getting ready for them because, it's really, two offenses, that you're getting ready for. So, that presents a challenge, I think, especially because, Flexbone's a great offense. I grew up in the Flexbone offense, but it's unique in the fact that we don't see it a ton on our schedule. You don't see it a lot. You see a lot of spread, but we don't see a lot of Flexbone. So it's unique in that regard, and preparing for that. And then, you got to turn around and also be ready for what they do out of their spread formation. So, It definitely makes it difficult as you go through the week to try and make sure that you're given the appropriate amount of time to both of the things that they do, and really kind of changing your mindset about, what they do, out of each set. So, I think there's teams that throw multiple looks at you, but they're still an inside zone, outside zone team or a power counter team. Their two looks are uniquely different, in what they do. And so, it's really important that we have a great week of preparation this week, and make sure we know what's coming out of both of their looks.
So the last thing I want to get to with you, Nick, is when you look at the schedule, everybody and the players, they've always got a game circled on the schedule. We saw, what happened when the Titans played Heritage Hills twice last season. Heritage Hills just had the Titans number. You go into this year, week 6, obviously all the Gibson Southern fans are looking towards that game. And I know I don't want to jump ship that early into the season, but how are you going to approach, heading it to, I believe, let me see real quick. Let me take a gander at the schedule. It's at home. What does that game specifically mean to you after losing to them twice last season, getting knocked out of the playoffs by them? What does that midseason matchup mean to you?
Nothing right now. I'm sure, for fans and everybody else, and when we get there, it'll be a big game. But really, our focus, this isn't coach talk. I mean, the way our schedule starts, like if we don't play well, we're going to be 0-2. And nobody wants to be 0-2. So, our focus is on this week and on Danville, and getting ready for that. And I really think, like, even looking past week 6, if you want to talk about, winning in the playoffs and going far, if we're not getting better today and kind of taking care of our business as we go through, week 6 or week 12, or, whatever you want to look at down the road, isn't going to happen, because, it takes, getting better every single day that we go out there. And, so that's our focus is, this week, it's all Danville. And, I know they're going to come down here ready to play. Like I said, I think they feel like they let one get away last year. And so, it's the last year of our deal. And it's a big one for them. You're just talking about the thing, we were their only regular season loss last year. So, just kind of flipping that back, of what you were just talking about. We know how ready to play they're going to be, and, have a lot of respect for their program and the way they do things. They do things the right way. They've had a lot of success. And so, you never really know week 1. We trade scrimmage film, but, nobody's showing anything. Nobody's playing their guys a whole lot, in the scrimmage. So, you're kind of looking at, okay, this guy played last year, this guy's a new guy, and you're trying to, figure out kind of where they're at with everything. But, that's kind of the bad and the good with week 1. You don't really know. I don't know if we know what we have, let alone what they have. So, you kind of tee it up on Friday night, and you kind of start to figure things out a little bit. So, I think that's kind of the exciting part about the beginning of the season. And so, back to the original question, right now that seems like a million miles away, because, Danville, rightfully so, has our full focus, and attention to get ready for this week.
Well, Coach, it was an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you. And as always, we'll do this weekly throughout the season. Hopefully, we have many, many episodes ahead. And I'm just super stoked to be back in the booth, being, one of the best football programs in the state of Indiana. It's pretty awesome to get to talk to you each week. And we're excited for Friday against Danville. Hopefully, that'll be a good matchup, as it's also the home opener. So, you love to, go out in front of the fans and, hopefully catch the dub. Hopefully, before heading 3 hours the next week up to Rochester. So that'll be a fun, nice little road trip. But Nick, it was obviously a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll catch right back up next week.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And make sure to tune in next week here on 89.1 The Bachelor, the Nick Hart Show, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Hart Show on 89.1 The Bash. Brought to you by the Gibson Southern Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillback Properties, Diversified Instruments, Du Bois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Ryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solman Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Help, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, and 89.1 The Bash.